By noon, my Navy Cross had been called a publicity prop, my husband had chosen the bench behind his mother, and a state judge had ordered me to strip the medal from my uniform in open court. The court reporter's keys clicked like dry teeth. Wool scratched the skin beneath my collar, and the ribbon bar pressed against my chest every time I breathed. The courtroom smelled of old varnish, copier toner, and the sharp rose perfume Judith Langford wore when she expected photographers. Judge Everett Hale stared down at me from the bench. "Take that medal off," he ordered. No one moved. A fluorescent light hummed above the jury box. Someone in the back row shifted, making the wooden pew creak. Beside opposing counsel, my sister-in-law Vanessa lowered her eyes to hide a smile that had arrived too early. That smile mattered. So did the phrase the judge had used seconds before. "This courtroom will not be used for a publicity performance," Hale had said. Those words had already been written. Not in a court filing. Not in a motion. Not in anything Judge Hale was supposed to have seen. They appeared in a press release Vanessa had drafted before the hearing. My attorney, Rachel Holloway, stood beside me with one hand resting on the counsel table. Her legal pad remained blank, except for a single line near the top. "Do not react." Judge Hale leaned forward. "Commander Price, I gave you a direct order. At 40, I had spent more than half my life in the United States Navy. I planned medical evacuation routes, trained teams to move wounded sailors through damaged spaces, and had learned long ago that panic wasted time people might not have. Still, my fingers wanted to reach for the medal. Not to remove it, to protect it. The medal felt cold beneath the fabric of my uniform, though the courtroom had grown warm enough to dampen my palms. Rachel raised her chin. "Your Honor, we object to the court directing a serving officer to alter her authorized uniform in a civil proceeding." "This is my courtroom, Miss Holloway," Hale replied. "Your client has chosen to arrive decorated for maximum emotional effect." "I arrived in the uniform authorized for this appearance," I said. Rachel turned slightly toward me. A warning. Silence was part of the plan. Across the aisle, Judith folded a tissue between her fingers. My mother-in-law wore navy blue and pearls, every inch the grieving founder of a charity, betrayed by an ungrateful daughter-in-law. From a distance, she looked smaller than she was. Daniel sat one row behind her. My husband's tie was the one I had given him for our 10th anniversary. Deep gray, narrow silver stripes. He did not look at me. Vanessa did. Her phone rested face down beside her briefcase, but one thumb remained hooked beneath the edge, ready to turn it over. Ready to post. Judge Hale tapped one finger against the bench. "Commander Price, remove the Navy Cross, or I will consider whether your refusal constitutes contempt." Rachel drew a slow breath through her nose. That was my signal. I leaned toward her and spoke quietly enough that only our table should have heard. He quoted the release. Rachel did not look at me. Her hand moved beneath the table, found her phone, and pressed the prepared contact. "Your Honor," Rachel said, "we are requesting an immediate recess based on a judicial ethics issue previously disclosed under seal." Hale's expression did not change, but the tapping stopped. "There will be no recess," he said. "The issue concerns possible contact outside the record," Rachel replied. A murmur moved through the courtroom. Opposing counsel stood. "Your Honor, this is another attempt by Commander Price to turn a routine charitable dispute into theater." Routine. That was the word they used for a lawsuit demanding that I surrender my records, stop speaking to donors, withdraw a request for an independent audit, and accept their continued use of my name. Rachel kept the phone low against her skirt. "The sealed notice is already before the chief administrative judge," she said. Judge Hale's eyes sharpened. "What sealed notice?" Rachel answered without raising her voice. "The notice identifying language known only to plaintiff's communications staff, language Your Honor has now used on the record." For the first time, Vanessa stopped smiling. Judith turned toward her daughter. "What language?" Judith whispered. Vanessa reached for her phone. The screen lit beneath her hand. I could not read every word from where I stood, but the message preview was large enough. "Post as soon as she removes it." My pulse struck once against the base of my throat. Not faster, harder. The court clerk's telephone rang, one clean electronic chime, then another. Every face in the room turned toward the clerk's desk. Hale's right hand tightened around his pen. The clerk answered in a low voice, listened, then stood with a sheet of paper pressed between both hands. "Your Honor," the clerk said, "Chief Judge Ellis is requesting an immediate administrative conference." Hale did not take the paper. "We are in session," he replied. "The request is immediate, Your Honor." Opposing counsel looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked at Daniel. My husband finally met my eyes. "What did you do?" Daniel whispered. The question crossed the aisle between us. I kept my voice level. I listened. Judge Hale removed his glasses and set them beside the microphone. "This court will take a brief recess," he announced. "No party is to leave the courtroom until further instruction." The gavel came down once. Its crack snapped through the room. Hale rose, gathered nothing, and disappeared through the door behind the bench. The Navy Cross remained where it belonged. Rachel ended the call and placed her phone on the table. "Do not speak to anyone," she told me. "Was the motion accepted?" I asked. "It was received," Rachel replied. "That is all we know." Judith stood so abruptly that her tissue fell to the floor. "This is outrageous," she said. Her attorney touched her sleeve. "Mrs. Langford, sit down." "My son is married to that woman," Judith snapped. "I have every right to ask what she has done." Rachel turned toward her. "Your foundation is the plaintiff, Mrs. Langford. You may communicate through counsel." Judith's lips pressed together. Daniel came around the end of the bench but stopped when Rachel stepped between us. "Angela," he said, "tell me what is happening." "You signed the resolution authorizing this lawsuit," I replied. "That does not answer my question." "It answers mine." His shoulders stiffened beneath the gray suit jacket. Daniel had spent the previous month saying he was caught between two sides, his mother's foundation on one side, his wife on the other. But people who are trapped do not usually sign the paperwork that locks the door. Vanessa whispered to opposing counsel, then reached for her briefcase. The clerk's voice cut across the room. "Miss Langford, all materials connected to today's hearing are to remain preserved." Vanessa froze. "I am taking my personal property," she said. "You may take your property," the clerk replied. "You may not delete, alter, or destroy records related to this case." "That sounds like an accusation." "It is an instruction." The clerk's tone held no heat, which made it land harder. Vanessa slipped the phone into her bag. 5 minutes passed, then 10. No one spoke above a whisper. Air moved through the old vent with a low rattling breath. My boots had begun to ache against the ball of my foot, but I stayed standing beside the table. Rachel opened her folder and slid one page toward me. It was the press release Samuel Reed had given us 3 days earlier. The Foundation's chief financial officer had printed it from a shared communications folder he was authorized to review. The headline read, "Court rejects commander's attempt to weaponize military honors against veterans charity." Below it, one paragraph had been highlighted. The court refused to allow Commander Angela Price to turn her medal into a publicity performance. Not similar words, the exact words. At the bottom of the page, the file information identified Vanessa Langford as the author. The document had been drafted before the hearing. Daniel leaned across the aisle and saw the page. His mouth opened slightly. "Where did you get that?" he asked. Rachel covered the document with her hand. "You will receive appropriate material through counsel," she said. "My family's files were stolen," Daniel replied. "No," Rachel said. The source had authorized access and preserved material relevant to litigation. Judith stared at her son. "What file?" she asked. Daniel did not answer. That silence carried a weight I had begun to recognize. It was the sound my marriage made whenever Daniel knew enough to warn me but chose not to. The door behind the bench opened. Judge Hale did not return. Instead, a court administrator entered with the clerk and spoke from the front of the room. "Today's hearing is adjourned," she announced. "Judge Hale will take no further action in this matter. The case will be reassigned, and the parties will receive written instructions." A rustle moved through the benches. Opposing counsel stood. "Has Judge Hale recused?" "The court will issue an administrative order," the woman replied. "I cannot provide further comment." Vanessa's hand gripped the top of her briefcase. Judith turned toward me. "You arranged this," she said. I looked at the empty bench. "No," I replied. "You did." Her expression tightened. "What is that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, Rachel touched my arm. "Not here," she said. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited behind the brass rail. Vanessa's photographer stood near the elevators, with a camera hanging from his neck. He had come expecting an image of me leaving without the Navy Cross. Instead, I walked past him with the medal still pinned above my heart. Camera shutters snapped. Daniel followed several steps behind. "Angela," he called. I kept moving. His shoes struck the marble faster until he caught up near the stairwell. "Are you trying to destroy my mother?" Daniel asked. The hallway smelled of dust and burnt coffee from a vending alcove. Voices echoed under the high ceiling. "Your mother sued me," I said. "She was protecting the foundation. From an audit. From accusation. I asked for records to be checked. You contacted donors. 2 donors whose restricted gifts did not match the recipient ledger." Daniel lowered his voice. You should have kept this inside the family. The foundation used my name to ask strangers for money. It stopped being private years ago. His gaze dropped to the medal. Wearing that today was a mistake. For whom? I asked. Daniel glanced toward the courtroom doors. He did not answer. Rachel approached with her phone in one hand and a sealed envelope in the other. Chief Judge Ellis has ordered court information systems to preserve Judge Hale's official email, calendar, access logs, and today's recording, she said. Daniel's eyes shifted toward her. What does that mean? He asked. It means no conclusion has been reached, Rachel replied. It also means no relevant court record should disappear while the issue is reviewed. Judith and Vanessa emerged from the courtroom with their attorney. My sister-in-law had recovered her smile, though it no longer reached her eyes. This proves nothing, Vanessa said. Rachel faced her. Then preservation should not trouble you. Vanessa's fingers tightened around the phone inside her bag. Judith stepped between us. Judge Hale has supported military families for years, she said. Dragging his name through the mud will not make your lies true. I looked at the woman who had used my photograph in gala brochures, donor letters, websites, and holiday appeals. For years, Judith had introduced me as her decorated daughter whenever a room contained wealthy people. That morning, when my questions threatened her foundation, my Navy Cross had become a prop. A court officer opened the elevator. Rachel and I stepped inside. Before the doors closed, Samuel sent her a message. Rachel read it, then handed me the phone. I saw a photograph of an internal board minute. Near the bottom, one sentence had been underlined. Governance advisor recommends framing Commander Price's objection as personal publicity. The advisor's name had not been written in full, only 2 initials. E.H. The elevator doors slid together, cutting off Judith's voice in the hallway. Rachel took back the phone. The call removed him from this case, she said. What Samuel found may remove him from every case. The elevator began to descend. Above us, the courtroom waited empty. And the man who had ordered me to remove my Navy Cross was no longer sitting on the bench. 4 years before Judge Hale left the bench without finishing my hearing, Judith Langford placed a hand over mine and said, Angela, families like theirs trust faces like yours. We were standing beneath crystal chandeliers at the first Valor Home Foundation gala, surrounded by white tablecloths, polished silver, and enough perfume to turn the ballroom air sweet. A jazz trio played near the windows. Glasses clinked. Somewhere behind me, a server dropped a fork, and the bright metal sound cut through a room full of practiced laughter. Judith's fingers felt cool against my skin. Faces like mine? I asked. Her smile held steady. Decorated service members, Judith said. People who have actually sacrificed. Vanessa appeared beside us, holding a folder against her chest. My sister-in-law wore a red dress, and the expression she saved for donor meetings. Warm enough to invite confidence, but sharp around the eyes. Mom means credibility, Vanessa said. You give the foundation credibility. Daniel rested his hand at the small of my back. It is one picture, my husband said. One campaign. Across the ballroom, a young widow stood beside a display board showing photographs of military families the foundation had helped. Her son clutched a toy airplane against his chest while Judith's event coordinator adjusted the angle of their name card. The widow had almost lost her apartment after her husband died. Valor Home had paid 2 months of rent and covered a utility bill while survivor benefits were processed. I had read the paperwork myself before agreeing to attend. That mattered to me. People were being helped. Real people. Vanessa opened the folder and showed me a draft brochure. My photograph filled the upper half of the page. I wore my formal Navy uniform, and the Navy Cross sat above the other ribbons on my chest. The image had been taken at a command event. I had approved its use for the gala invitation after Daniel promised it would appear only once. This is larger than we discussed, I said. Vanessa tilted the page. The design team cropped it for balance. They cropped everything except the medal. Donors need to understand who you are. They can read my name. Judith's laugh was soft. Angela, most people do not read, she said. They feel. Daniel pressed his thumb gently against my back. Let them use it for the spring drive, he said. Then it is done. Vanessa pulled out a short agreement. The terms were clear enough. 1 photograph, 1 fundraising campaign, 1 year. No transfer of my endorsement beyond the listed materials. No right to sign my name. No authority to identify me as an officer, director, or supervisor of the foundation. I read every line twice. You make everyone nervous when you do that, Vanessa said. When you read like someone is trying to trick you. I looked up from the document. Is someone trying to trick me? Vanessa smiled. Good grief, Angela. It was a joke. Daniel gave his sister a warning glance. Rachel had not represented me then, but a Navy legal assistance attorney had reviewed the agreement and reminded me to keep the charitable activity separate from my official duties. I signed as a private individual, no command endorsement, no use of government seals beyond what appeared naturally on the approved photograph. When I handed the pages back, Judith embraced me. You are doing something wonderful, she whispered. Her rose perfume filled my nose. At the time, I believed her. The gala raised more money than any previous event the foundation had held. Judith introduced me from the stage as her decorated daughter, leaving out the part where I was her daughter-in-law. Donors rose to applaud, and Vanessa directed a photographer toward the Navy Cross every time I turned. After dinner, I met the widow from the display board. Her name was Carol Benson. Mrs. Langford told me you were the reason they found us, Carol said. That was not me, I replied. The foundation staff handled your case. Carol shook her head. They said your campaign brought in the emergency money. Her son pushed the toy airplane across the linen tablecloth, making a low engine sound with his mouth. You kept us in our home, Carol said. The sentence landed heavily because I had not done that. My face had helped raise money. That was all. Still, her rent had been paid. I told myself the distinction did not matter if the result was good. That became the first excuse I made for the Langfords. There would be others. During the spring campaign, Vanessa sent me copies of the materials after they had already gone to print. The Navy Cross appeared on envelopes, donor cards, and a banner behind Judith at a breakfast fundraiser. One morning, a retired admiral stopped me after a speaking event. You have done fine work with Valor Home, he said. I attended their gala, I replied. He frowned. The letter made it sound as if you were overseeing grants. What letter? He opened his briefcase and handed me a folded donor appeal. My photograph appeared at the top. Below it was a message written in the first person. I have seen what military families endure when support arrives too late. As honorary director of Valor Home Foundation, I ask you to stand with me. My name appeared at the bottom. Angela Price. The signature looked clean and dark, with no hesitation in the strokes. I had never seen it before. The paper made a dry sound as I folded it. May I keep this? I asked. Of course, the Admiral said. Is something wrong? I need to confirm who approved the wording. That evening, I placed the letter on our kitchen counter. Daniel came home carrying takeout containers and stopped when he saw it. What is this? I asked. He set the food down. A donor letter. It calls me honorary director. That is probably honorary language. It says I oversee grants. Daniel loosened his tie. You know how marketing works. No, I know how authorization works. He opened one container, and the smell of garlic and fried onions spread through the kitchen. Vanessa should have shown you the final copy, he said. She should not have written it. She was trying to help by signing my name. Daniel looked at the signature. That could be a standard electronic mark. It is my name. You signed the campaign agreement. Not this. His shoulders dropped. I will talk to her. Tonight. Angela. Tonight, Daniel. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. My mother finally has something that is working. Please do not walk into their office like an investigator. Then tell them to stop behaving like people who need one. Daniel's mouth tightened. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then he picked up the letter. I will handle it, he said. Those 4 words became another door I should have refused to let him close. The next day, Vanessa called. I heard you are upset, she said. I did not authorize that letter. You authorized the campaign. I did not authorize a false title. It is ceremonial. I am not a director. No one thinks you are doing bookkeeping. That is not the point. Vanessa sighed into the phone. You are making a big deal out of donor language. You used my signature. We used an approved electronic signature for campaign consistency. I never approved an electronic signature. Silence. Not long, less than a second. Enough. I will have the title adjusted in the next printing, Vanessa said. And the signature? We cannot recall mail already sent. You can stop sending more. Fine. Her voice had changed. The warmth was gone. But when donations fall, I hope you will remember that families are depending on us. The call ended before I answered. For several months, the problem seemed to settle. Valor Home paid an electric bill for a family near Norfolk. Another grant covered travel for a wounded sailor's parents. Judith sent photographs of recipients holding checks, while Vanessa copied Daniel and me on grateful emails. The evidence of good work arrived just often enough to quiet my questions. Then the 1-year agreement expired. My photograph remained on the website. I noticed it late one night after returning from an exercise. Daniel was asleep upstairs, and the only sound in the kitchen came from the refrigerator motor. The foundation homepage opened with a large image of Judith standing beside me beneath an American flag. Below it were the words, "Led by military families, guided by decorated service." My name appeared under a staff heading, Commander Angela Price, Honorary Director. I took screenshots. The next morning I sent Vanessa an email. "The campaign authorization has expired. Remove my photograph, title, and name from all active materials. Do not issue donor communications under my signature." Daniel read the message over my shoulder. "You copied the board chair?" he asked. "Yes. That will embarrass Vanessa. She should be embarrassed. You could have called her." I did. He pulled out a chair but did not sit. "Mom is in the middle of the winter drive. That has nothing to do with my consent. Can you give them until the campaign ends?" The campaign was supposed to end last year. Daniel's fingers drummed once against the chair back. "You always make things so final. Permission is final when it expires." His gaze shifted toward the screenshots. "My mother will take this personally. She made it personal when she put my name under staff." Daniel looked tired, though the day had barely started. "I will speak to her." "No." The words stopped him. "I am done asking you to carry messages." His hand dropped from the chair. "What does that mean?" "It means they answer me directly now." Judith called within the hour. "Angela," she said, "removing you without explanation will frighten donors. Then explain that the agreement ended. That will sound like a disagreement." "It is a disagreement." Her voice softened. "You are one of us. I am not your director. No one is asking you to work in the office. You are asking strangers to believe I supervise it." Judith inhaled slowly. "Do you know how hard it is to build trust?" "Yes," I said. "That is why I do not lend mine without limits." The line went quiet. When she spoke again, every word came measured. "This foundation existed before you. Then it can exist without my photograph." Judith ended the call politely. That was how she delivered threats, with good manners and no wasted breath. 2 weeks later, the photograph was still online. A donor letter arrived at our house addressed to Daniel. I opened it because our mail had always been shared. The appeal thanked him for being part of a military family guided by sacrifice and service. Inside was a smaller card signed by me, not the old signature, a newer one. The curve of the last letter matched the way I had signed a holiday card the previous Christmas. That signature had never appeared in the campaign agreement. Someone had created a fresh electronic copy. Daniel walked into the kitchen while I was holding it. His eyes went straight to the card. "Where did Vanessa get this signature?" I asked. He set down his keys. "I do not know." "Who has access to donor communications?" "Vanessa handles them." "You answered too quickly." Daniel stared at me. Outside, a garbage truck groaned to a stop, then lowered a bin with a metal crash. The sound filled the silence between us. "Angela," he said, "do not turn this into something it is not." I placed the card on the counter. "What is it?" He did not answer. And for the first time, I stopped asking whether Vanessa had made a mistake. I started asking how many times she had used my name without me. The first person to tell me Valor Home had not paid what it promised was a widow named Carol Benson. Her call came just after 7 on a Tuesday evening, while I was standing at the kitchen counter with the donor card still in front of me. The newer signature stared up from the paper, dark and smooth, copied from somewhere I had never approved. Daniel had gone upstairs without answering my question. My phone vibrated against the granite. "Commander Price?" a woman asked when I answered. "This is Carol Benson. We met at the gala a few years ago." I remembered her voice before I remembered her face. Quiet, careful, as if every sentence had to pass through a filter before she allowed it out. "Yes, Mrs. Benson," I said. "I remember you." A television played softly in the background on her end. Beneath it came the rattle of dishes and a child asking for more milk. "I hope I'm not bothering you," Carol said. "You aren't." I didn't know who else to call. The donor card beneath my hand felt slick against my palm. "What happened?" I asked. Carol drew in a breath. "The foundation sent me a copy of the new brochure. It says they gave my family $12,000 after my husband died." I pulled out a chair. "How much did you receive?" $3,000. The refrigerator motor clicked off, and the kitchen went still. "Was there other assistance?" I asked. "Rent paid directly? Utilities? Travel?" 2 rent payments and 1 electric bill," Carol replied. "That was the $3,000. Did they promise anything else?" "They said there would be more after the next donor drive." "How long ago?" "Almost 3 years." Daniel appeared at the bottom of the stairs. His gaze moved from my face to the card on the counter. I turned away from him. Mrs. Benson, do you still have the award letter and bank records? Yes. Keep them, I said. Do not send the originals to anyone. Carol lowered her voice. Am I in trouble? No. Mrs. Langford said the brochure amount included services. What services? She did not say. The child in the background called, Mom? 1 minute, honey, Carol answered. Then she returned to me. I am grateful for what they did, Carol said. I don't want to sound ungrateful. You are allowed to ask where the rest of the money went. Silence followed. When Carol spoke again, her voice was smaller. They had me pose with a check for $12,000. My fingers curled around the edge of the table. Did they give you that check? No. It had sample printed across the back. Daniel took a step closer. I held up one hand to stop him. Mrs. Benson, write down everything you remember, I said. Dates, names, amounts, who called you, and what you were told. Do not post anything online. Are you going to investigate them? Carol asked. I am going to ask for records. That was all I could promise. After the call ended, Daniel leaned against the counter. What did Carol want? He asked. She received a quarter of the amount your mother advertised. Program value can include services. What services? Daniel folded his arms. I do not manage grants. You sit on the board. That is not the same thing. It should be enough to ask questions. He glanced at the donor card. You are connecting two unrelated things. A false signature and a false grant amount are not unrelated. You do not know the amount is false. She held a ceremonial check for money she never received. Mom may have counted projected support. Then the brochure should say projected. Daniel exhaled. You are already assuming the worst. No, I am reading what they wrote. He picked up the card, then set it down again. Let me speak to Vanessa. You said that last time, and I did. Nothing stopped. Daniel's mouth tightened. Do not contact recipients without counsel, he said. The warning sounded rehearsed. Why? I asked. Confidentiality. Carol contacted me. You still need to be careful. I watched him turn away. The man who claimed not to know anything suddenly knew exactly which word to use. Confidentiality. The next morning, I sent a formal request to Valor Home Foundation. I asked for the recipient report connected to every active campaign using my name, photograph, title, or signature. I requested records showing what had been approved, what had been distributed, and what had been advertised. Vanessa answered within an hour. Commander Price. Recipient information is confidential. Your expired promotional role does not provide access to private client files. Continued interference may place vulnerable families at risk. I read the message twice. Then I forwarded it to Rachel Holloway. Rachel called before lunch. Do not reply yet, she said. I asked for records tied to my own name, and she answered as if you requested medical files. What can I ask for? Aggregate reports, campaign materials, authorization records, documents showing how your identity was used. Carol says the foundation advertised 4 times what she received. Get her permission before your attorney contacts her, Rachel said. Do not collect bank records yourself. A chair squeaked on Rachel's end. Angela, I need to ask you something directly. Do you believe donor money was stolen? I do not know. Good. Keep saying that until documents support something more. I believe the records do not match. That is what you can say. Her precision steadied me, not because it made the situation smaller, because it gave the problem edges. 3 days later, Samuel Reed asked to meet. He did not call me directly. His email went to Rachel and requested a private conference concerning financial reporting at Valor Home Foundation. We met in Rachel's office after business hours. Samuel arrived carrying a black document case. His collar sat crooked, and the skin beneath his eyes looked bruised from too many sleepless nights. He declined coffee, water, and the chair nearest the window. I should have done this sooner, he said. Rachel closed the office door. You understand I represent Commander Price, she replied. I do not represent you. Samuel nodded. I have my own attorney. Did your attorney advise you to bring these materials? Yes. Rachel sat across from him. Tell us what you are authorized to access. As Chief Financial Officer, I have access to grant ledgers, payment summaries, board materials, vendor invoices, and campaign reports. Do not give us donor medical information or anything outside that scope, Rachel said. Samuel unlocked the case. The hinges gave a dry click. Inside were printed spreadsheets, board summaries, and several certified copies of internal reports. Paper and toner carried the faint, warm smell of a busy office copier. He slid one ledger toward us. "The foundation does real work," Samuel said. "That needs to be clear." Rachel did not touch the page yet. "How much real work?" "Enough that people trusted us." The answer settled badly. Samuel pointed to Carol Benson's name. Her approved grant showed $12,000. The disbursement column showed $3,000. "What happened to the rest?" I asked. "Deferred." "For 3 years?" Samuel looked down. Mrs. Langford moved funds between programs when cash got tight. "Was the balance reserved for Carol?" "No." The next page listed another family, then another. Some received half the advertised amount. Others received less. Several names appeared in campaigns across multiple years, each time presented as a new family helped by donor money. One entry stopped me. The same wounded sailor appeared in 3 annual reports. "Why is this man listed 3 times?" I asked. Samuel rubbed one thumb along the edge of the table. Vanessa said donors remembered his story. "Did he receive 3 grants?" "1. Rachel leaned forward. "Was the family told their case would be reused?" "I do not know." My attention moved lower. A household received an approved housing grant after the service member's death. Then the same name appeared again 2 years later under emergency deployment support. "That cannot be right," I said. "It is not," Samuel replied. The room grew quiet. Rachel turned another page. "These payments are labeled Program Administration." Samuel nodded. "Judith's salary. Vanessa's bonus. A vehicle lease. Office renovations. A series of monthly payments to Hale Civic Strategies." I tapped the vendor name. "What is this?" "A consulting company." "Who owns it?" Rachel asked. Samuel looked toward the closed door. "Judge Everett Hale's son." The pressure behind my ribs shifted. Why is a judge's son advising a veterans charity? "Governance consulting," Samuel said. "What did he produce?" "I have not found reports, written recommendations, or completed projects matching the invoices." "Who approved the vendor?" Rachel asked. "Judith recommended it. The board consent passed." "Did Daniel vote?" Samuel did not answer immediately. That pause told me before the page did. Rachel turned to the consent form. Daniel Langford. Approved. My husband's electronic signature sat beneath the vendor agreement. Samuel opened a second folder. Judge Hale joined several board calls, he said. "In what role?" Rachel asked. Judith called him a volunteer governance advisor. Was he named in official minutes? Sometimes by initials. Samuel placed a page in front of me. Near the bottom, beside a discussion of executive compensation, appeared a short note. E.H. advised classifying family payroll within administrative program support to avoid distortion in public ratios. My thumb pressed into the paper. "He advised them how to hide it?" I asked. Samuel shook his head. "That is not how they described it." "How did they describe it?" "Presentation." The word tasted worse than theft. Rachel began arranging the documents into separate stacks. "Why now?" she asked Samuel. His hands folded together. "Vanessa asked me to alter recipient records before the next donor audit." "Alter them how?" "Combine approved amounts with amounts never distributed." "You did that before," Rachel said. Samuel's eyes dropped. "Yes." The admission sat without excuse. "I signed reports I should not have signed," he continued. "Judith always said the money would be restored after the next campaign. Then the next campaign came, and the shortage got larger." "Did you receive extra compensation?" Rachel asked. "A retention bonus. Was it tied to reporting?" "No." Samuel's voice thinned. "But I knew why they wanted me to stay." He pushed a final document toward Rachel. It was an internal communications draft. My photograph occupied the top of the page. Below it, Vanessa had written a donor appeal in my voice. As Honorary Director Commander Angela Price reminds us, no military family should fight alone. My name appeared at the bottom. Again. "Was this sent?" I asked. "Not yet," Samuel said. "It is scheduled for next month." "After I told them in writing to stop?" "Yes." Rachel looked at me. "That gives us intent." That afternoon, we prepared the audit request. Every sentence stayed narrow. Recipient records appear inconsistent with advertised grant amounts. The foundation continues using my name and image beyond the written authorization. Donor communications contain a signature I did not approve. Payments to related vendors require independent review. No accusation of theft. No public statement. Rachel sent the letter to the board chair, the independent accountant, 2 donors whose restricted gifts appeared in the disputed campaigns, and the state charity regulator. A separate certified notice withdrew every remaining permission to use my name, photograph, title, signature, and Navy Cross. Judith arrived at our house the following evening. Daniel let her in without asking me. Her heels struck the hardwood in a quick, measured rhythm. Rose perfume entered the room before she did. "You reported your own family to the state," Judith said. "I requested an independent audit. You sent private records to donors. My attorney sent discrepancies connected to their restricted gifts." Judith placed her purse on the chair but did not sit. "You have no idea how a foundation works. I know $12,000 should not become $3,000 without an explanation. Outreach costs money. So does your car." Her chin lifted. "That vehicle is used for foundation business. And your country club? That is donor cultivation. Your daughter's bonus?" Vanessa raised millions. "How much reached the families in the brochures?" Judith's nostrils flared. "Do not reduce years of service to a spreadsheet. Then show me the records. You are trying to humiliate us." "No, I am asking where the money went." Judith stepped closer. "Donors give because they trust this family. They give because you put my name on the envelope." For 1 second, the careful public expression slipped. Something hard passed across her face. Then Daniel entered from the hallway. "Can we lower our voices?" he asked. Judith turned toward her son. "Your wife is trying to destroy the foundation." Daniel looked at me. "Did you contact the regulator?" "My attorney did." "You should have told me first. You signed the Hale Civic Strategies contract." His shoulders stopped moving. Judith's eyes shifted toward him. "What has Samuel given her?" she asked. There it was. Not, "Who is Samuel?" Not, "What contract?" What has Samuel given her? Daniel stared at his mother. I watched the question travel between them. Judith knew Samuel had access. Daniel knew more than he had admitted. And neither of them was asking whether the records were true. My phone rang on the table. "Rachel." I answered. "Angela," she said. "The foundation filed for a preliminary injunction." "When?" "This afternoon." Judith's mouth curved slightly. The lawsuit had already been prepared before she walked into my house. Rachel continued. "The original judge has recused because of a prior donation to the foundation. The emergency motion is being reassigned." "To whom?" Paper moved on Rachel's end. "Judge Everett Hale." Across the room, Judith reached for her purse. She no longer needed to argue. Her case had landed exactly where she wanted it. The process server arrived the next morning before Daniel left for work. 3 sharp knocks struck the front door while I was pouring coffee. Daniel stopped halfway through fastening his watch, and Judith's words from the night before returned with perfect clarity. "Your wife is trying to destroy the foundation." A man in a brown coat stood on the porch holding a thick envelope against his chest. "Commander Angela Price?" he asked. "I'm Angela Price." He handed me the papers. "You've been served." The envelope felt heavier than paper should have. Cold air slipped around the doorframe and touched the damp skin at the back of my neck. Somewhere down the street, a garbage truck groaned as it lifted a bin, then dropped it with a metallic crash. Daniel stayed in the hallway. He did not ask what the papers were. That told me he already knew. I closed the door and set the packet on the kitchen counter. Valor Home Foundation appeared at the top of the complaint. Not Judith Langford. Not Vanessa. The foundation itself. The organization that had used my photograph, my title, and my Navy Cross to raise money was now suing me for defamation, breach of confidentiality, interference with donor relationships, and violation of an ambassador agreement that had expired years earlier. They wanted an injunction preventing me from contacting donors, recipients, board members, or state regulators. They wanted me to withdraw my audit request, and they wanted damages. Daniel reached for the top page. "Let me see." I placed my palm over it. "When did you know?" His hand stopped. "Know what?" "That they were filing." I knew Mom was talking to counsel. That was not my question. Daniel looked toward the coffee maker. Steam curled from the pot, carrying the bitter smell of coffee through the kitchen. "I did not know they had filed," he said. "You knew enough not to look surprised when the server came." "That is not fair. Neither is using my signature to raise money and then suing me for asking where it went." Daniel pulled out a chair. "Angela, the foundation has obligations. Once you contacted restricted donors, the board had to respond." "The board?" "Yes." "Did the board vote?" His fingers tightened around the chair back. "It was an emergency consent." "Did you sign it?" Daniel's eyes shifted away. I picked up the complaint and turned to the attached exhibits. Near the back sat a copy of the electronic board resolution authorizing the lawsuit. Judith Langford. Vanessa Langford. Daniel Langford. My husband's signature appeared beneath the words approving legal action against Commander Angela Price. The coffee maker clicked off. "You signed this," I said. Daniel rubbed his jaw. "It was presented as a protective measure. Against your wife. Against public damage to the foundation. My letter was private. You contacted donors. 2 donors whose restricted gifts may have been misused. That is still interference." I pushed the resolution toward him. "You signed authorization to sue me, then slept beside me without saying a word." Daniel's mouth opened, but no answer came. Rachel arrived less than an hour later. She spread the complaint across our dining table, reading each claim with a yellow pencil in one hand. Daniel remained in the kitchen at first, pretending to check email, though the same screen stayed open for nearly 20 minutes. Rachel tapped the ambassador agreement attached to the filing. "They are describing this as an ongoing relationship," she said. "It was limited to one campaign," I replied. "I know. Can they do that?" "They can allege it. Proving it is another matter." Rachel turned another page. The foundation had attached a donor letter bearing my electronic signature. "This is the newer signature," I said. "Did you authorize it?" "No." "Did you authorize the title honorary director?" "No." "Did you approve the statement that you supervised grants?" "No." Rachel circled the exhibit number. "They are using the unauthorized communication as evidence that you had continuing duties to the foundation." Daniel stepped into the room. "Vanessa may have believed the campaign authorization continued," he said. Rachel looked at him. "Mr. Langford, I represent your wife. I do not represent you, your mother, your sister, or the foundation." "I understand. Then I suggest you obtain independent counsel before discussing board matters." Daniel's shoulders stiffened. "I have nothing to hide." Rachel's pencil stopped moving. People with nothing to hide still need legal advice when their signatures appear on resolutions under review. His gaze dropped to the complaint. I watched the sentence reach him. Not because he had never considered legal risk, because until that moment, he had assumed the only person in danger was me. Rachel returned to the exhibits. A second electronic consent authorized the continued use of my name and image. Daniel had signed that too. Then came approval for Judith's compensation package. Daniel. Vanessa's performance bonus. Daniel. The vendor agreement with Hale Civic Strategies. Daniel again. Page after page carried the same neat electronic signature. "How many of these did you read?" I asked. He pulled out a chair and sat. "Board consents come by email. Sometimes there are several at once." That was not my question. I reviewed the summaries. Did the summary say Judge Hale's son owned the consulting company? Daniel's fingers folded together. I knew his family was connected. "How?" Mom said Judge Hale recommended the firm. "You approved a company because the judge recommended his own son? That is not how it was presented." "How was it presented?" Daniel looked at Rachel, then back at me. "As a trusted governance vendor." Rachel slid the consent toward him. "The disclosure section is blank." He did not touch the paper. A pulse moved in his cheek. "I assumed Vanessa handled the disclosure." "Of course you did," I said. Rachel raised one hand. "Angela, do not continue this conversation without knowing whether Mr. Langford may become a witness." My husband pushed back from the table. "I am not a witness against my family." Rachel's expression did not change. "You signed their records. That makes you a fact witness whether you like the role or not." Daniel walked into the kitchen. The refrigerator door opened, then closed without anything being removed. By afternoon, Samuel sent Rachel another document. A press release. The draft headline claimed a court had rejected my attempt to use military honors as a weapon against a veterans charity. Below it, Vanessa had written that Judge Everett Hale refused to allow me to turn my Navy Cross into a publicity performance. The hearing had not happened yet. No judge had ruled. Rachel enlarged the file information on her laptop. "Vanessa created this yesterday," she said. "Before the case reached Hale? Before the reassignment notice became public." A timestamp showed the document had been edited late the previous evening. Samuel also provided a telecommunications expense report for the foundation-issued phone Vanessa used for donor work. He had access because the foundation paid the bill and required him to approve monthly expenses. One outgoing call had been labeled governance consultation. The number did not appear in the donor database. The call lasted more than 10 minutes. It occurred shortly before Vanessa edited the press release. "Do we know whose number it is?" I asked. "Not yet," Rachel said. "Samuel can verify the foundation paid for the call. He cannot identify the private subscriber without proper process." "Could it be Hale?" "It could be anyone." Her voice stayed flat. "But if the number belongs to him, the timing matters." Rachel placed the expense report beside the press release. A call, then an edit, then language predicting what a judge will say. Is that enough to remove him? No. The answer came immediately. We have suspicion, not proof. Accusing a judge publicly without enough support would help the foundation paint you as reckless. What can we do? Rachel closed the laptop. We create a record without revealing more than necessary. The following day, she prepared a sealed notice for Chief Administrative Judge Margaret Ellis. The notice did not accuse Hale of corruption. It stated that Angela Price possessed a press release containing language not used in any pleading, motion, hearing transcript, or public statement. It explained that the document appeared to predict how a specific judicial officer would describe my Navy Cross. Rachel attached the draft, its metadata, the relevant board minute, and the phone expense report. Then she proposed a narrow safeguard. If Judge Hale used the unpublished phrase or its exact substance during the hearing, Rachel would request an immediate recess and recusal review. This is not a trap, she told me in her office. What is it? A way to preserve fairness if our concern proves correct. And if he never says it? Then the sealed notice stays where it is, and we litigate the injunction. Rachel wrote one sentence on a legal pad. He quoted the release. If it happens, you say only this to me, she continued. You do not address the chief judge. You do not announce the document. You do not argue with Hale. What if he orders me to remove the medal? Rachel held my gaze. Your uniform is a separate issue, and I will object. You follow my direction in court unless an order requires immediate legal review. I read the sentence again. He quoted the release. A small phrase. Enough to tell Rachel the concern in the sealed notice had become real. That evening, I found Daniel packing files into a leather portfolio. Are you going to the board office? I asked. No. Then where? My attorney. He set another folder inside. The man who had told Rachel he had nothing to hide had found counsel before dinner. What did you tell your lawyer? I asked. That my wife is threatening my family's foundation. I asked you to answer questions about your signatures. You are trying to turn every board consent into a crime. I did not call it a crime. You did not have to. Daniel closed the portfolio. Rachel has you seeing conspiracy everywhere. Did Vanessa speak to Judge Hale before the reassignment? His hands stopped on the buckle. I do not know. Did Judith? I do not know. Did you know Hale advised the foundation? Daniel stared at the floor. I knew he gave Mom occasional guidance. Did you know his son was paid? Yes. The word came quietly. How much? I never checked. Did you vote to hire the company? You saw my signature. That is not an answer. Daniel lifted his head. Yes, I voted. The house settled around us with a faint wooden pop. Why? I asked. Because Mom said Hale trusted them. Hale trusted his own son. Angela, not every relationship is corruption. No, but every relationship should be disclosed. Daniel picked up the portfolio. If you push this, you will destroy them. What about us? His grip tightened on the handle. You can survive this, he said. They cannot. For a moment, the room became very quiet. No traffic outside. New refrigerator hum. Only the small click of the portfolio buckle beneath his thumb. That was his choice. Not made in court. Not forced by Judith. Made in our living room, with every document in front of him. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in silence. Daniel stood in the bedroom doorway while I fastened my jacket. His attention settled on the Navy Cross. Wearing that will only make things worse, he said. I adjusted the ribbon until it sat straight. For whom? I asked. Daniel had no answer. By then, Rachel had filed the sealed notice. Samuel had preserved the press release, and somewhere inside the foundation's phone records sat a number we did not yet have the right to name. By the time Judge Hale called our case, the press release predicting his words had already existed for 3 days. Rachel placed one copy inside her trial folder. Another sat under seal with Chief Administrative Judge Ellis. Samuel had preserved the original file information, and the foundation's phone expense report showed Vanessa had billed a long governance consultation shortly before editing the draft. None of that proved who had answered the call. Not yet. The bailiff opened the courtroom door, and a wave of dry heat rolled into the hallway. Inside, shoes scraped across old wood, while attorneys arranged binders and whispered over legal pads. The room smelled of varnish, dust, and the burnt coffee someone had carried in from the vending alcove. Daniel walked past me without touching my arm. He sat behind Judith, not beside me. Vanessa settled at the plaintiff's table, placed her foundation-issued phone next to her briefcase, and checked the screen twice before the clerk asked everyone to rise. Judge Everett Hale entered through the door behind the bench. His robe moved around him with a soft sweep of fabric. He looked first at the attorneys, then at Judith, and finally at me. His gaze stopped on the Navy Cross. Only for a moment. Long enough. "Be seated," the clerk said. Wooden benches creaked across the room. Rachel remained standing. "Good morning, Your Honor," she said. "Rachel Holloway for Commander Angela Price." The Foundation's attorney, Martin Cole, rose from the opposite table. "Martin Cole for Valor Home Foundation," he said. "Executive Director Judith Langford is present, along with Fundraising Director Vanessa Langford." Daniel was not identified. My husband had signed the board resolution authorizing the lawsuit, but he sat in the gallery as though none of the papers belonged to him. Judge Hale adjusted his glasses. "We are here on plaintiff's request for preliminary injunctive relief," he said. "Counsel, keep your arguments narrow." Cole walked to the lectern. "Valor Home Foundation serves military families during moments of crisis," he began. "Its reputation depends on trust. Commander Price once agreed to act as a public ambassador, then abruptly contacted donors and regulators with accusations of financial misconduct." Rachel stood. "Objection to the characterization," she said. "Commander Price requested independent review and identified documented inconsistencies. She did not publicly accuse anyone of theft." Judge Hale looked over his glasses. "Miss Holloway, you will have your turn." Rachel sat. Cole continued. "Commander Price's conduct has already caused donor hesitation. She has used her military title, her uniform, and her personal decorations to lend official weight to a private dispute." My hand rested against the edge of the table. Cole turned slightly toward me. "At every appearance, she presents herself not simply as Angela Price, but as a decorated commander. The implication is unmistakable. Oppose her, and you oppose the United States Navy." "That is not our position," Rachel said. Hale's voice sharpened. "Miss Holloway." Rachel stopped. Cole placed the ambassador agreement on the display screen. The limited terms appeared in black and white. 1 photograph. 1 campaign. 1 year. He skipped past those lines. Instead, he enlarged a general cooperation clause requiring me to avoid knowingly harming the campaign during the approved term. "This is the agreement Commander Price signed," Cole said. "She accepted the benefits of association, attended galas, appeared with recipients, and helped the foundation raise substantial funds." "She received no compensation," Rachel replied. Cole faced the bench. "Compensation is not required for a contractual duty." Judge Hale nodded. Behind Cole, Vanessa touched the corner of her phone. Her thumb slid beneath it. "Ready." Rachel stood when Cole finished. "The plaintiff asks this court to silence a person whose identity it continued using after written authorization expired," she said. "Commander Price gave limited permission for 1 image in 1 campaign. Valor Home Foundation later called her an honorary director, issued donor communications under her electronic signature, and continued using her photograph after receiving certified notice to stop." Cole rose. "Those issues belong in later discovery. They are the basis of the foundation's claimed relationship," Rachel replied. Judge Hale leaned back. "Address the injunction, counsel." Rachel placed Carol Benson's campaign record on the screen. "The foundation advertised a $12,000 grant," she said. "Records currently available show that the family received $3,000. Cole stepped forward. "Confidential services made up the remaining value. Plaintiff has not identified those services because recipient information is protected. The recipient herself contacted Commander Price and authorized counsel to verify the amount." Judith's pearls shifted as she turned toward Vanessa. "My sister-in-law wrote something on a legal pad and pushed it toward Cole." Judge Hale watched the movement. Then his eyes returned to me. "Commander Price," he said, "why did you attend today in uniform?" Rachel rose immediately. "My client is here through counsel, Your Honor." I asked Commander Price. The wool at my collar rubbed against my throat. "Your Honor," I said, "I am appearing in the authorized uniform approved for this proceeding. I have not claimed that the Navy is a party." Hale's gaze dropped to the medal. "Yet you chose to wear the Navy Cross. It is part of the authorized uniform." Cole returned to the lectern. "Your Honor, this is precisely the pressure the Foundation has faced. Commander Price uses the emotional force of military honors to overwhelm questions about her own conduct." Rachel's legal pad remained still beneath her hand. Judge Hale looked at the gallery, then at me. "This courtroom will not be used for a publicity performance," he said. Every sound in the room seemed to separate. The court reporter's keys, the air vent rattling above the windows, Vanessa's fingernail tapping once against her phone case, The sentence sat between us exactly as it appeared in her draft. Not close. Exact. Hale pointed toward my chest. Take that medal off. Vanessa smiled. A small movement. Barely there. But it came before surprise. She had been waiting. Rachel's eyes met mine. I leaned toward her. He quoted the release, I said. Her hand moved beneath the table and pressed the prepared contact. Then Rachel stood. Your Honor, we request an immediate recess based on the judicial ethics issue disclosed under seal. Hale's fingers closed around his pen. What sealed issue? The issue now confirmed by language Your Honor used on the record. Cole rose. This is a stage disruption. No, Rachel replied. The sealed notice predates this hearing. Judge Hale's jaw tightened. There will be no recess. Commander Price will comply with the court's order. Rachel kept her voice even. We object to directing a serving officer to alter an authorized federal uniform in a state civil hearing. We also renew our request for immediate administrative review. Hale looked at me. Commander Price, if you refuse, I will consider contempt. I did not touch the medal. The medal rested against the uniform, steady despite the pressure beneath my ribs. Vanessa's phone lit. Judith leaned toward her daughter. Is it ready? Judith whispered. Vanessa turned the screen slightly away, but the message preview remained visible. Post as soon as she removes it. The clerk's telephone rang. One sharp electronic tone. Then another. Hale glanced toward the desk. The clerk answered, listened, and rose with a sheet of paper in both hands. Your Honor, the clerk said. Chief Administrative Judge Ellis requests an immediate conference. We are in the middle of a hearing. The request is immediate. Judge Hale stared at the clerk. No one moved. Finally, he brought down the gavel. This court will recess. The crack echoed against the walls. Hale removed his glasses, left them beside the microphone, and disappeared through the door behind the bench. Vanessa's smile vanished. Judith turned toward me. What did you do? She asked. Rachel answered before I could. Mrs. Langford, communicate through counsel. Daniel came around the gallery rail. Angela, he said, what just happened? I looked at the empty bench. The judge said something he was not supposed to know. Daniel's gaze shifted toward Vanessa. My sister-in-law closed her briefcase. The clerk stepped forward. All parties are under an obligation to preserve materials related to today's hearing, she announced. That includes electronic communications and draft public statements. Vanessa stopped with one hand on the latch. Is that directed at me? She asked. It is directed at every party. Cole touched her shoulder. Do not say anything else, he told her. We waited nearly 15 minutes. Whispers moved across the gallery. A reporter near the back scribbled in a notebook, though no one had announced why the judge had left. Judith sat rigidly beside Daniel, one hand wrapped around the tissue in her lap. Rachel turned her phone face down. Chief Judge Ellis has received the emergency motion, she said quietly. What happens now? I asked. Hale does not continue until the administrative issue is addressed. Across the aisle, Daniel heard her. Does this mean you accused him of corruption? He asked. No, Rachel replied. It means counsel reported a specific concern under seal, and the predicted event occurred. Vanessa gave a short laugh. Predicted? Anyone could have guessed he would object to that medal. Rachel looked at her. The issue is not that he objected. What is it then? Vanessa asked. You will receive the filing through counsel. The courtroom door opened. Judge Hale did not return. A court administrator entered and took a position beside the clerk. Today's hearing is adjourned, she said. Judge Hale will take no further action in this matter. The case will be reassigned by administrative order. Cole stood. Is this a recusal? You will receive the order. On whose request? No further information is available at this time. The administrator gathered the papers Hale had left near the bench. His glasses remained beside the microphone. For the first time that morning, Judith looked uncertain. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited near the elevator bank. A photographer Vanessa had hired stood with his camera ready. He had expected to capture me leaving without the Navy Cross. Instead, camera shutters clicked while I walked past with the medal untouched. Judith followed us into the corridor. You embarrassed a respected judge, she said. I stopped. He ordered me to remove a medal after using language your daughter wrote before the hearing. That is absurd. Then the records will clear him. Vanessa stepped beside her mother. The press release was a template. Rachel turned toward her. A template containing a quotation before it was spoken. It was common phrasing. Then preservation should not concern you. Vanessa lifted her phone. I will not surrender my personal device. No one asked you to surrender it, Rachel said. You were instructed to preserve relevant records. Daniel stood several feet away. His face had gone still. "You knew about the release?" I asked him. "No." "Did you know Hale advised the foundation?" Daniel glanced at Judith. "I knew he offered occasional guidance." "Did you know his son's company was paid?" His silence returned. Always the same shelter. Rachel's phone vibrated. A message from Samuel appeared. "The fundraising account just moved the press release draft to trash. The user identification belongs to Vanessa. I have not touched the file." Rachel read it once, then typed a reply. "Do not restore it. Preserve the alert and contact Foundation Counsel." Vanessa watched her. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Protecting the record." Rachel sent the message, then looked toward Cole. "Your client's foundation system generated an audit alert, indicating that a fundraising account moved the release draft to trash after the preservation instruction. Mr. Reed has been advised not to alter the file and to notify Foundation Counsel." Vanessa's face tightened. "I deleted nothing." Rachel did not argue. "That can be determined from the audit log." Cole turned to Vanessa. "Do not touch the foundation drive. It was an outdated draft," she said. "Stop talking," Cole replied. Judith stepped between them. "This has gone far enough." "No," I said. "It has finally started." The case was reassigned that afternoon. 2 days later, a different judge reviewed the foundation's request for an injunction. Rachel presented my certified notice, the expired ambassador agreement, Carol's authorization, and the narrow language of my audit letter. The new judge denied the foundation's request to stop me from communicating with regulators and restricted donors. Discovery would proceed. Then the first court-authorized records arrived. The number Vanessa had called from her foundation-issued phone belonged to Judge Everett Hale. Her governance consultation had lasted more than 10 minutes. Minutes after the call ended, Vanessa edited the press release and added the phrase, "publicity performance." Hale's official calendar listed the same period as a community governance call. That evening, Rachel placed an invoice on her desk in front of me. Hale Civic Strategies had received its largest payment from Valor Home Foundation on the same day. "What service did they provide?" I asked. "No written product has been produced," Rachel said. The invoice description contained only 3 words: Governance Crisis Consultation. Rachel closed the folder. "Judge Hale did not simply know Vanessa's strategy," she said. "The records suggest he helped build it. For years, the Langfords had used my Navy Cross to raise money. When I asked where that money went, they tried to use the same medal to discredit me. And the judge who ordered me to remove it had been advising them on how. The audit began with locked accounts, copied drives, and one quiet order removing Judith and Vanessa from financial control. A temporary monitor arrived at Valor Home Foundation before sunrise on Monday. By noon, Judith's foundation credit card had been suspended. Vanessa's access to the donor system had been disabled, and Daniel had received notice that every board consent bearing his signature would be reviewed. Judith called me before lunch. "You have destroyed the only organization helping these families," she said. "I asked for records," I replied. "You knew what an audit would do. If the records were clean, it would have done nothing." Her breathing sharpened through the phone. "The foundation helped people. Then the numbers will prove it." She hung up. They did not. The independent report showed that Valor Home had paid real bills for real military families, but the public claims were inflated again and again. Recipients appeared in multiple campaigns. Approved grants were advertised as completed grants. Restricted donations had paid Judith's vehicle lease, Vanessa's bonuses, office renovations, and community events carrying Judge Hale's name. Carol Benson received the remaining money promised to her only after the monitor found the unpaid balance. When Rachel told me, I sat at my kitchen table with both hands around a cold mug. "At least she gets it now," I said. Rachel closed the file. "She gets what donors intended years ago." Samuel's records filled the gaps Vanessa tried to blame on him. He admitted signing reports he should have refused, but his emails showed Judith directing him to delay disbursements and Vanessa ordering him to count unpaid approvals as completed assistance. Then the court-authorized phone records arrived. Vanessa's foundation-issued phone had called Hale's private number before the hearing. Chambers called her back the next morning. The press release changed after both calls. Hale's financial disclosure mentioned neither his advisory role nor his son's company. The Judicial Commission summoned him. The last time I saw Everett Hale, he was not above me. He sat at a witness table beneath plain fluorescent lights while I waited beside Rachel in my service uniform. The Navy Cross remained pinned where regulations placed it. A recording of his courtroom order played through the speakers. "This courtroom will not be used for a publicity performance. Then, counsel displayed Vanessa's press release, created before he spoke. Hale called the matching phrase coincidence. The commission's attorney placed the call logs beside the file history. Hale said he had offered informal community guidance. Board minutes appeared next. Governance advisor E.H. recommends framing Commander Price's objection as personal publicity. His mouth tightened. Invoices from Hale Civic Strategies followed. The largest payment carried the description Governance Crisis Consultation, yet no report, memorandum, or work product existed. By the end of that hearing, Hale had stopped looking at me. He was suspended from receiving new cases. Several older matters involving Judith's donors were reopened. Before the commission issued its final recommendation, Hale resigned. The man who had ordered me to remove my medal left the bench because his own words proved he had helped write the performance. Judith lost the foundation next. The board removed her as executive director and demanded repayment of excessive compensation and personal expenses. Her vehicle was returned. Her name disappeared from the gala, the website, and the brass plaque outside the office. During settlement discussions, Judith sat across from me in a gray suit without pearls. "The foundation did help people," she said. "Then the records should be enough," I replied. "You should not need my medal to make you look honest." Her eyes dropped first. Vanessa lost her position, her fundraising career, and the bonuses tied to campaigns that used my false signature. The attempted deletion of the press release did not erase the file. It only gave investigators another reason to distrust her. Daniel asked to meet without attorneys. I refused until Rachel approved a public conference room. He arrived carrying our wedding photograph. "I never used your medal," Daniel said. "No," I replied. "You only watched while they did." "I signed forms. I did not write donor letters. You signed the consent that kept my name on them. My mother would have lost everything. You decided I could survive what they did." Daniel stared at the photograph. "I was trying to hold my family together. You chose which family counted. Our divorce was final months later." Daniel remained liable for some board decisions and had to testify about the vendor contract, the denied audit, and the resolution authorizing the lawsuit. Judith blamed him for cooperating. Vanessa blamed him for failing to protect the phone records. The family that had once posed together beneath patriotic banners turned on itself as soon as the cameras disappeared. Valor Home did not close immediately. A temporary receiver transferred restricted funds to a respected military relief organization, paid verified recipient balances, and removed every use of my name, photograph, title, and signature. Samuel lost his position but received limited protection for cooperating. He was not praised. He had waited too long. Neither had I. That truth remained mine. The final envelope arrived on a quiet afternoon. Inside were the dismissal of the foundation's claims, confirmation that my image rights had been restored, and notice that the false donor letters were formally withdrawn. I placed the expired ambassador agreement in a records box. The Navy Cross stayed outside it. A week later, the relief organization sent its first report. Emergency rent had been paid for 3 military families. No gala, no stage check, no photograph of me, just names protected, bills paid, and receipts matching the amounts promised. Once, help arrived without anyone borrowing my face to deliver it. For years, the Langfords had treated my medal as family property. Hale had treated it as a courtroom prop. They were all wrong. The medal was never theirs. Neither was my name. And by the time they understood that, none of them had a platform left to stand on.